Hi, everyone. Welcome to Leisrealtalk. Happy Tuesday or happy Wednesday. All right. Xi Jinping brought back Hu Jintao for Jiang Zemin's funeral. I thought it's quite interesting. So I looked into that. And I think I'll share with you some of the dirty politics that happened behind the scene. Right. Okay. So Xi Jinping's biggest political enemy, Jiang Zemin, has died, and the Xi faction and the Jiang faction have engaged in a life and death fight for the past 10 years. To many people's surprise, Xi Jinping gave Jiang a very high-profile state funeral. He and his wife, first of all, went to the Beijing airport to personally receive Zheng's remain. Zheng died in Shanghai. And here you see he bowed to Zheng's wife, and standing next to the wife is Zheng's older son. And Xi Jinping even hugged the son, a move that's kind of uncharacteristic of Xi Jinping, and it looked a little awkward. I'll show you the video clip later. So for the funeral arrangement, Xi Jinping pretty much copied the funeral that, interestingly, Jiang Zemin organized and hosted 25 years ago for Deng Xiaoping. Xi Jinping televised Zheng's memorial service to the nation, canceled all entertainment events for the day, paused the stock markets for 3 minutes, and he ordered workplaces to send people to stand along the Chang'an Street to bid Jiang a farewell. Let me see. Do I have pictures? Yeah. I mean, this is not spontaneous. I mean, it looks so staged and organized. Actually, I found this post. Somebody posted, said that, this is a kind of a rough translation. It's the person said, I heard various work units are making arrangements to have people stand on the China street tomorrow. The police cars are everywhere. Interestingly, he said, I assume it's a he, those who are asked to stand on the street must have 3 vaccines shots, and CCP membership are required too. And then the person continue, complaining about it. The police cam checking everyone's ID. The neighborhood is closed. And for the funeral, buses have to make a detour, this and that. And then, yeah, the person is just like, what's the big deal? So it's staged, right? People don't really have that much respect for Jiang Zemin, but Xi Jinping have to organize a stage an event for him. Maybe this is the time I'll play the video. So I'll play the video that kind of shows, give you a kind of a snapshot of what happened in Beijing, and you'll see Hu Jintao walked behind Xi Jinping and how Xi Jinping hugged the son. So I'll play the video. Here it is. Oh, let me start from the beginning. Yeah, this is, and then unfortunately that was cut, so we don't really see how he approached. Here's the hug. And then see how Hu Jintao, there's a young man standing next to Hu Jintao. Here we go. Oh, here, I'll play that clip again. Here are all the people. I think they're soldiers who stand line up the streets. These are organized because, yeah, I mean, look, everyone dressed in black. Black is not the mourning color traditionally for Chinese. The white is the traditional color to mourn. So it's just all staged. People look so organized. I'll show you the young man who walked beside Hu Jintao. this guy is Hu Jintao, right? The man who's like He Shi. And there's a young man walked behind him. I don't know if you'll see. Yeah, who kind of, and you'll see him here. There's a young man who walks behind next to Hu Jintao. Here he is. This guy looks the same as the guy who was so here's the picture. Here's the guy. Here's the young man, right? So of all the CCP leaders who attended the funeral, nobody had a bodyguard or a helper except Hu Jintao. And then this young man, I think, is the same guy who removed him at the party congress. I think they just look strikingly similar. So here's the young man walking behind him. Here's the young man on the far left at the party congress. Oh, here. Oh, what happened? Yeah, if you look at the hairline, they look very similar, and then also the eyebrows, they look similar. So you wonder why Xi Jinping, used the same bodyguard, right, that removed Hu Jintao at the funeral. And if you argue, well, maybe Hu Jintao is old and he needs help, that's not necessarily true, because the guy that stood right behind Xi Jinping, the man who's a little short, who stood in front of Wang Yi, the foreign minister, that's Li Ruihuan, and this guy is 88 years old. So Hu Jintao is not even 80; he's, I think, 79. So here you have an 88-year-old who doesn't need a helper, but Hu Jintao, was given a helper. I think this is really Xi Jinping's chance to kind of show, by using the same bodyguard, he's showing that the removal wasn't meant to humiliate Hu Jintao, but it was really just to look after him. So here I'm doing it again and another event, and I'm only doing that to him. It just shows it's, the purpose, the intention is benign. There's no other intention. I think this is the design behind this. All right. So Hu Jintao has returned. Here's a close-up. Yeah, here's a close-up of the picture. I think it's the same young man. I mean, they just look at the eyebrows and look at the hairline. I think it's the same person, right? Okay. All right. So then the question is, Xi Jinping made an unusual, let me come back. So Xi Jinping made an unusual effort to show unity during Jiang Zemin's funeral. And he went out of his way. I mean, why would he give such high praises of Jiang Zemin, his biggest political enemy, who he had fought life and death for 10 years, and all of a sudden, he gave this, it's almost like the same type of state funeral that Deng Xiaoping got, right? So why would he do that? So things may not seem as simple as that. Behind all of that, there's an ugly political fighting between the two factions that still continues even after Jiang Zemin has died. And I think the final battle that determines who will win is unfolding now. Before I get into the politics, let's first take a look at the power struggles surrounding the death of former CCP leaders that have taken place historically. So let's take a look at so before Jiang Zemin died, there were two CCP leaders who had died, Mao Zedong and Deng Xiaoping, right? We had other CCP leaders who also died, like Hua Guofeng, Hu Yaobang, and Zhao Ziyang, but those people died after they were removed from power. So only two leaders who had sort of remained in power or not losing their title, not having lost their title when they died, and they were Mao Zedong and Deng Xiaoping. Interestingly, when they died, their successor, um, what should I say? Their successors were quick to remove the former leader's associates and even their family members. In the case of Mao's successor, here we have Hua Guofeng on the left. He removed Madame Mao, Mao's wife, and her gang of 4 1 month after hosting Mao's funeral. And this paved the way for Deng Xiaoping's return to power. After Deng obtained power, of course, he did not appreciate Hua Guofeng. He actually removed Hua Guofeng as well. That just shows you the ugly political infighting at the top leadership within the CCP. Now, the second leader who died, that was Deng Xiaoping. Guess who hosted his funeral? It was Jiang Zemin. Right? Jiang Zemin hosted Deng Xiaoping's funeral. The guy even cried 5 times while delivering the eulogy. By the way, Xi Jinping did not shed any tears while he was, while he eulogized Jiang Zemin. He spoke in a very solemn tone, but he did not cry. I don't think he want to cry. But Jiang Zemin was such an actor, so this guy cried 5 times at Deng Xiaoping's funeral. But do you know what he did? But he secretly, he and his deputy Zheng Qinghong started to prepare to eliminate Deng Xiaoping's influence in politics even before Deng died. So in a 2015 article from Radio Free Asia, the article quoted a media report from Hong Kong as saying that 2 years before Deng Xiaoping died, Jiang Zemin's deputy Zheng Qinghong started collecting evidence against Deng's children. And even before Deng died, Jiang Zemin and Zheng Qinghong arrested Deng's adoptive son, Zhou Beifang, for corruption and interrogated Deng's second son, Deng Zhifang, twice. The man on the right is Deng's second son, Deng Zhifang, twice. And I even heard that after Deng died, Jiang arrested his son. I could not verify that before this show. So, but I've heard that he actually, arrested this guy. So this caused Deng's wife such paranoia. So he threatened. He talked to Jiang Zemin. He threatened Jiang Zemin with a suicide claim, and so Jiang Zemin eventually backed down. But the adoptive son was given a suspended death sentence. This drama eventually drove Deng Xiaoping's children away from the political power center in Beijing, and they forever left politics. Deng Zhifang, the man on the right, his son, has not been seen in public for a while. And rumor has it that Deng Xiaoping's older son died in Australia. So you see how the CCP leaders, when the leader died, their successor immediately, try to eliminate the past leader's influence by even, like arresting or get rid of their family members. So when Jiang Zemin died, let me come back. So when Jiang Zemin died, the Jiang faction feared that Xi Jinping may do the same to them, particularly when the two sides have not seen eye to eye for 10 years. Yuan Hongbin, a dissident and a law expert who now resides in Australia, gave a lengthy interview yesterday with a Chinese language media that's based outside China, Vision Times. And he revealed that based on his source in Beijing, Jiang Zemin had been brain dead since November 13th. He was kept alive by machines because Xi Jinping and the Jiang faction had been negotiating about his funeral arrangement. I could show you the slides if you read Chinese. Here, yeah, it's just a quick screenshot of this YouTube video in Chinese. It's a long audio recording of the interview he gave. I'll provide the link if you're interested in listening to his interview. It's in Chinese. So, all right. So according to him, he said that Zeng Qinghong, the Jiang faction's de facto leader, had prepared a draft of the eulogy and sent it to Xi Jinping and then the Central Party Committee in the name of Jiang Zemin's wife and his son. And this eulogy is full of high praises of Jiang Zemin. When his wife and son sent the draft, they also said that if the party or Xi Jinping doesn't use this eulogy or does not give an appropriate funeral to Jiang Zemin to celebrate the Jiang's achievements, his family and friends will host the funeral on their own without bothering Xi Jinping and the party. You know, in a communist state in China, where the party controls everything, you know, when you tell the current CCP leader, we're going to do the funeral, we're going to do a funeral without the party, without you, and that's highly provocative. That's like an open insult, right, to Xi Jinping. So Yuan's source in Beijing, in Beijing, said that she was very angry that Jiang's family and Zeng Qinghong would use Jiang's death to coerce him and to openly challenge him. So he had emergency meetings with his Politburo Standing Committee members, which are now all his people now, right? He got rid of everyone else. So it's now comprised of only his allies. And so they had meetings and they discussed what to do. And they wanted to use Jiang's death to actually openly fight with the Jiang faction by exposing his dirty laundry, meaning all the bad things that Jiang Zemin did. And Xi's loyalists in the military even suggest that they should confiscate the enormous wealth of the Jiang Zemin family and also the Jiang faction. And this money can be used to help the PLA, the Chinese People's Liberation Army, financially in the event that there is a war in the Taiwan Strait. Okay, and so that's why the announcement of Jiang's death was delayed while this is going on. You know, Xi Jinping was having internal meetings with his people, and also he, was trying to figure out what to do, how to deal with the Jiang faction. Then the Xinjiang fire broke out, right? And then that triggered the protests. So the protest started on November 26. And then the white paper movement broke out. Remember the protest? Which city did the protest first break out? It was in Shanghai. Remember, Shanghai was the city where people chanted, Xi Jinping steps down and the CCP steps down. And Shanghai is the home base of the Jiang Zemin faction. That's where Jiang Zemin is from, and that's where he died. And so the protests that quickly went across the country have put Xi Jinping under tremendous pressure. And so to prevent the Jiang faction from using the white paper movement and Jiang's death to create a political crisis similar to the Tiananmen Square, the 1989 student pro-democracy movement, Xi Jinping decided to take a bow and what do you say that? In Chinese, it's called swallow the anger. So he agreed to the Jiang family's requests. And Yuan Hongbin, the guy who disclosed this information in this lengthy audio interview, said that the eulogy he delivered was very similar to what the Jiang faction had written. I think that explains why Xi Jinping went out of his way and put on such a show for the public to see how kind he is to Jiang's people, right? By hugging his son, by went to the airport with his wife to personally receive Jiang's coffin. And to bow to Jiang's wife and all of that. I mean, it's really those are not characteristic of what Xi Jinping would typically do. So people say he put on a great show. I mean, obviously he's doing that for as a performance, but people wonder why. Like why would he do that? And I think this kind of connects the dots. Yuan also said that the CCP Central Commission of Discipline, what do you call that? The Central Commission of Discipline Inspection has estimated that there are still 15,000 Jiang faction officials in the government, and about 3,000 private business owners who work as their white gloves. White gloves meaning bagmen. You know how officials technically cannot be involved in business, so they have these business people who hold shares for them in private companies, in private businesses. So they estimate, the Xi Jinping faction estimated there are about 15,000 government officials that still belong to the Jiang faction, plus 3,000 private businesses or business owners that work for them. And this group of people, in my opinion, probably will see, things may be peaceful for the time being, for Xi Jinping to take care of the problems, the chaos that zero COVID has created. But after the dust has settled, the people that I have talked to or read about believe that Xi Jinping will come down with a major political cleansing to eliminate the Jiang faction, because he's not the type of person who would tolerate that kind of provocation, right? So he's not likely to back down. He's only playing along to appease them strategically for the time being, but he's looking for the opportunities to get back. And I think an ugly fight is on the horizon. So he might have attributed the white paper movement to his political enemy, because it kind of started in Shanghai, where it got political, very political in Shanghai. Because in other cities, people were just mourning for the deceased in the fire in Xinjiang. But in Shanghai, that's where the political slogan was heard first. So he may believe that the white paper movement is a political, or his political enemy is behind that. And Yuan's source also said that in the early morning of November 28th, that's the Sunday evening, it's the Sunday evening after the protest had spread across China, Xi Jinping held a meeting with the Political and Law Commission. That's the commission in charge of public securities. And the meeting decided to use arrests. They're going to arrest the activists in the white paper movement, but in a secretive manner, without disturbing the public. And I think this has already happened. We've seen some outspoken students and young people being taken away and missing. So the political infighting is still ongoing, even though Jiang Zemin has died, and I think it can get ugly. So we'll see what happens. This is just a quick update for you, what's happening behind the state funeral in China. All right, so let's see. Do people have any questions for me? Thanks for all you do, ma'am. Any guess as to when Wuxi and places like open or at least easing restrictions? Um, don't we didn't we hear today that the CCP will issue a new policy on Wednesday that will announce further moves to ease the zero COVID policies? So it will come out on Wednesday. We'll see what happens. But right now, I think it's just not so easy. Uh, because CCP would not. I think this is also another incentive for Xi Jinping to kind of ease the stringent public health policy, because he is feeling the heat. So, but then CCP is not gonna just. I mean, the only way to solve the suffering is just end it all. Just end everything, end mass testing, get rid of the public health code, just go back to the pre-COVID era. But we know CCP will not do that. So that when they drag on this process of unlocking, of reopening, it's just going to create more chaos. And right now, there are a lot of money involved because the local government have invested so much money into building these quarantine camps, and that's big business for the local government officials personally. So it's their pocketbook, it's their way to make money. So it's hard for them to give that up entirely. So now I've seen like different regions interpret the policies, the central government's policies differently. So it's going to be hard. So yeah, it's going to vary from region to region, and the decision may not be based on the actual situation of the pandemic. The decision will be based on how greedy the local government officials are. I'm making a video to show you the money behind the zero COVID policies, and you'll be surprised how people made so much money during the past 3 years. Okay. All right. Thank you, Joe, for the donation. Travel with love. Hi, Leila, everyone. Thank you for sharing your insights again. Excellent and intelligent education. Greeting from California. Happy Tuesday. All right. Happy Wednesday. Thank you. All right. From William Warren. Thank you for your analysis. Very informative. From Stony Vincent. Thank you for your effort to help us understand China. Thank you, Stony. From Van Ket, thank you. From Robert Hawkey, where does Guo Mingqi, who is Guo Mingqi, get his information from the Apple information leaks? Guo Mingqi? You mean the owner of Foxconn, Guo Taiming? I'm sorry, I don't recognize the name, so it's hard for me to answer that question. Details about Saudi oil deal. Well, Xi Jinping is going to Saudi Arabia on Wednesday, right? That's tomorrow. So yeah, so he's going to Saudi Arabia. That's another event that we should keep our eyes on. That would be interesting. And let's see. That's about all I have. Let's see. Guo Mingqi. Okay. All right. So let me see. From Book Lover, let's see the questions. In 1962, China attacked India when China weak inside and convert intention outside. Will this happen in 2023? Well, I talked about this in one of my live streams, I think in November, where you're right. So when Mao Zedong suffered a political setback after his Great Leap Forward movement failed, causing the Great Famine and also economic downtime, he immediately launched the war in India, right? And then later the war in Vietnam. So if you look at that piece of history, so people say if Xi Jinping has a major political setback and he, in order for him to find a way out, a war may be a convenient way for him to divert attention and get himself out of a political crisis or an economic crisis. So yes, so we have talked about that. There is a likelihood. All right. All right. So if I don't have any other questions from Stephen Mitchell, was Jiang faction fueling hostile actions toward Xi to undermine Xi? Well, they have been doing that for the past 10 years. They are, I mean, Xi Jinping is not in a his situation. He's not in a happy place. I mean, the Chinese people are upset and are protesting, right? And his political enemy, in this case, is Jiang has died, but his deputies are, his son and then Zheng Qinghong. I mean, they're using all these public resentment towards zero COVID, and also working with their Western allies. I mean, even the mainstream media in the West have been talking about, they compare the current situation that Xi Jinping faces. You have you have a former leader died in the middle of a public, outbreak of public protest. They compare that with the 1989 student movement, and so the Western media are also creating, buzz, about the likelihood of political crisis for Xi Jinping, um, and that so his enemies outside China, his enemies inside China, and then the public resentment. I mean, everything is working against him. And so that's, I think, when he realizes he does not want to bust the Jiang faction right now, although he has every intentions to do that. So that's why he backed down and gave the Jiang faction the funeral, or the memorial service, the service that they demanded. But that doesn't mean that the fight is over or Xi Jinping actually backed down. It's only beginning. I think the show is just beginning. Um, all right, so um, all right, I will end it now because it's weekday nights and it's weekdays, for those in Asia. And I will see you on Thursday. All right. Thank you very much for joining me. And I'll keep you posted. Okay. Bye bye.